Hey friends! In this video we'll be drawing forms. Forms are basically the 3D versions of shapes, and they're incredibly helpful for your drawings. It's important that you're able to feel comfortable drawing forms, because forms, just like shapes, are the building blocks of your drawings. Learning to draw forms comfortably will help you gain an understanding of how things work in a three-dimensional realm. And this will help you understand your references more deeply. After I felt comfortable drawing shapes, I started working on the three-dimensional forms. And drawing forms until I felt comfortable with them helped me improve my drawings, because I suddenly gained an understanding of how objects work in 3D, even though I'm drawing them in 2D. It's also much more fun to add shadows to a three-dimensional sphere than to a two-dimensional circle. But more on that in the next video. In this video, I'll show you how I started drawing and understanding forms. We will go through the most basic ways of constructing them. And we will also talk about perspective and how understanding perspective will be useful for your art. During this video, feel free to follow along or pause the video to draw alongside me. We'll start with spheres. A sphere is a three-dimensional version of a circle. Drawing a sphere without adding shadows to it can be a bit tricky, but this is my simple way of doing that. First, draw a circle. And just as in the past video where we drew shapes, start with soft light markings and darken them once you feel more certain with your circle. Now, draw a vertical line that goes in the center of your circle. To finish your sphere, draw a curved line that kinda looks like a smile. And that's a sphere looking front and a bit down. The cross between the two lines will determine where your sphere is looking at. So if you draw a circle with a vertical curved line to the side and a horizontal curved line pointing up, that's a sphere looking a bit to the side and up. Using this method, you can draw spheres looking in any direction you want. Drawing spheres comfortably will come in handy in the future when you want to draw faces, eyes, heads, and so many other things. They're the building blocks for so many interesting subjects. Now, let's draw cylinders. A cylinder is a three-dimensional curved shape with a circular top and bottom. Think of a tube or a can of soup or a toilet paper roll. To draw a cylinder, start by drawing an oval. From the sides, draw two lines. And at the end of those lines, repeat the oval you drew at first. And there you have a simple cylinder. To determine which way your cylinder is looking at, you can darken the circle that you want closest to you, and make one of the sides of the other circle a bit lighter. This instantly gives you the feeling that one of the sides of the cylinder is closer to you. By doing this, you can create cylinders that are looking any way you want. It's important to draw forms in as many perspectives as you can. Understanding how forms behave from different perspectives will be super useful when you're trying to draw something more complicated. Unlike shapes, forms will look different from every angle you look at them. And it's important that you take that into consideration. For example, if you would look at a cylinder from the side, it would kinda look like a rectangle. However, if you tilt it just a little bit, you can already see the circular top or bottom of your form. You can also draw complex cylinders. For example, cylinders that are bendy, curved, or have other shapes at the top or at the bottom. Knowing how to draw simple and complex cylinders will come in handy when you want to draw arms, legs, bottles, jars, rockets, and so many other fun things. It's also a fun mental exercise. To draw a cylinder that doesn't have a circular top or bottom, you can draw a different shape twice. One for the top and one for the bottom. Once you have that, create lines to unify both shapes and make it three-dimensional. This is a fun mental exercise that will be helpful when you want to draw more complex shapes. Let's draw cubes now. We'll start with the easiest way to draw cubes. So simply draw a square, and once you have that, draw another square that is diagonal to the first one. Now, join all the corners, and there you have a cube. Cubes are also a great introduction to perspective. Perspective is the point of view we have. It will help us create the illusion of depth and space on a flat surface. Perspective is what gives your artwork dimension, form, and space. It makes your art look more realistic. Let's take a moment to look at this image. We can see that all straight parallel lines seem to meet as they move off into the distance, into what is called the vanishing point. We all know that the edges of the road are parallel lines, but they appear to meet in the vanishing point. The necessary and basic forms of perspective are 1, 2, and 3-point perspective. Let's talk about 1-point perspective. 1-point perspective is when all points lead to one vanishing point. And 1-point perspective will have all the lines of the cube meet in one vanishing point. This is usually the case when we see a building directly in front of it. But how can we apply 1-point perspective? Let's say we have this square, and we want to turn it into a cube that follows 1-point perspective. To do that, you can make one horizontal line, and on it draw 1 point. This will be our vanishing point. Now, from the corners of the square, draw lines that go to that vanishing point. And once you have that, you can make just a few more lines to close your cube, and there you have it. That's a cube in 1-point perspective. Let's move on to a 2-point perspective. As the name suggests, 2-point perspective has two vanishing points. If we take the example of the building again, this would be when you're standing a bit off center to the building and you're able to see two sides of it. Every line of each side of the building meets on the vanishing point that is on each side. But how can you draw a cube that follows a 2-point perspective? Draw a horizontal line and on it draw 2 points. This will be your vanishing points. Draw a vertical line between these points. On this vertical line, draw 2 points. Now, make a line from each of these points into your vanishing point. By adding 2 vertical lines, you can see a cube from the front. To finish with the basic forms of perspective, let's move on to a 3-point perspective. 3-point perspective also has 2 vanishing points on the horizon, but it also has a third vanishing point either above or below the horizon line. This type of perspective is super helpful when you're trying to draw cities, for example. If you're standing at ground level of a building and look up, the building will look narrower at the top than at the bottom. But if you're flying above the city, it will look narrower as it gets closer to the ground level. But how can you draw a cube that follows a 3-point perspective? We'll start just the same, with a horizontal line and 2 points on it. In between these 2 points, draw a vertical line. Add another point underneath that line, and this will be your third vanishing point. Now, from the first 2 vanishing points you drew, you will draw 2 diagonal lines that go from each of the vanishing points into the vertical line. And from the first 2 vanishing points, you will draw 2 more diagonal lines that will help you define the top of your cube. With 2 more lines from the first 2 vanishing points, you will define the top part of your cube. And from the corners that get created with those lines, you will draw a line that goes from the corner to the 3rd vanishing point underneath. And there is your cube in a 3-point perspective. It sort of looks like a building. And this could be super useful when you're trying to draw buildings, houses, or cities, for example. Understanding perspective requires lots of time and practice, but this is a great place to start. You can also use this knowledge to create forms like pyramids or cones. Let's start with pyramids. A pyramid is a triangular 3-dimensional shape that has a square bottom. To draw one, draw a horizontal line and on it draw 2 points. Draw a vertical line in between those 2 points. Make 2 sets of lines that go from the vanishing points to the lower part of the vertical line. This way, you're creating a squished square that will be the bottom of your pyramid. From the corners of that squished square, draw lines that go to a point on the vertical line you drew. And that's a pyramid. You can follow these same steps to draw a cone, because a cone is basically a pyramid that has a circular base instead of a square one. To draw a cone, follow the same steps you followed to draw a pyramid. So we'll start with a horizontal line with 2 points on it. Now draw a vertical line in between those 2 points. Draw 2 sets of lines that create a squished square. And use that square as a guide to draw an oval inside for your base. From the sides of the oval, draw lines to create the top of your cone. And there you have it, you drew a cone. These are the most basic ways to draw forms. Remember that forms, just like shapes and lines, will be the foundation of your drawings. They'll become the structure on which you will draw anything you want. That's why it's important to practice them a lot. This way, it'll be easier for you to understand perspective and how to draw 3-dimensional objects. Just like with the previous lessons, I want you to be able to draw these forms quickly and not worry about them being perfect. So let's get to practice. The assignment for this video is to fill up a bunch of layers with basic forms. Go to the worksheets of this video and fill at least 3 layers with each of the forms we talked about in this video. Play a nice playlist and take the time to practice how to comfortably draw forms. Only you will know when it's time to move on to the next video. I want you to be able to draw forms without having to think too much about it. Everything around you follows these rules of perspective, and that's why it's important to study and practice them. Make sure to share what you did for this assignment with the rest of the class in the Design Cuts Community Hub. I'd love to know how many pages you did of each form, and if this helped you feel a bit more comfortable when drawing. Once you feel comfortable with this step, we'll start to add shadows and values to them. See you in the next video where we'll be working on values and the basics of shading.